Hello, Nitroners, and welcome back to another episode of VFX with Natron. So, today we're going to be continuing on our treasure map, and or treasure map logo. It's going to be making an animated logo and so forth with full treasure map and everything on parchment, which we made the parchment last time. And so today we're going to be focusing on trying to get the treasure map parts made, or at least started. I'm not going to say all of them. There's hopefully going to be more things that are going to appear after today. This is going to be, again, a multi-part series. And there is an ultimate goal. But let's take a look at what the hope of today is. There's a lot to bite off today. So let's look at what hopefully we're going to achieve today. Alright, so here we are over in Natron, and I already have loaded up our project from last time. And this is the parchment we made, obviously, and if this isn't available, I will ensure that this is one of the projects that is definitely going to have something available in case people don't know. And I think I've mentioned this in previous posts or previous videos. I know I made it in post. Some of the due to time constraints in midlife, can't always get all the projects up in a timely fashion to match up with the YouTube stuff and other things. But I'm working on it. My priority has been to get all the YouTube videos up, converted up and posted so that people have at least the stuff, and then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to update them, adding the files, and then I'm going to go back and add the table of contents and so forth to try and break it down so people can search them easier. Another thing that's going to be going on, this is new, is I'm also starting up a Patreon account very soon. I'll let people know when that's coming, because there's going to be hopefully more things done in the not so distant future that are going to be a bit more catered, and I would like to make it so that they're going to involve editing and more stuff. The live streams to me are fairly easy to do. Anyhow, but that's something, if you enjoy this stuff, it's something to think about for the future. By the time this appears on YouTube, it's probably going to be up. Anyhow, back to this. The goal. So the goal, we saw what the goal was. What the first thing we need to do is we have made this texture, but for right now, we don't want to do much to this background, and keeping it in its current state. If we let this render for every frame, the problem we run into is that it's got to basically rebuild this on every single frame for what essentially right now is a still. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, like we've done in the past, we need to cache this frame. So we're going to, so that it only has to build it once, and then it will do the rest of the frames for animation purposes in the future. So we want to do a disk cache, and I'm hoping, I just want to make sure that's showing up. Yep, it's showing up properly. We're going to put a disk cache here, and we're going to set it from the frame range to manual. We're going to cache only the first frame, and then we are going to connect this up to a frame hold. And a frame hold, what the frame hold will do is we will connect that up there, and what we're going to do is tell it that we want to have the first frame be frame 1. You should always have the first frame be the frame that the animation starts on, where you want it to basically hold for, because otherwise it will render everything up to that point, and we don't want the disk cache to go beyond that, because it's only caching the first frame. So we don't want it to increment, so we're going to keep it at 0. So it's going to basically come to this frame, it's going to stop, and it's going to hold this frame for the rest of time. And what that means is if we hit play, this should play back very, very fast. We can see that now all it's doing is it's basically playing back as fast as it can, because it only has to look back to this point in time. So that saves us a lot of trouble over here. All right. So now that we've got that, that's where that's going to be coming in for things. I want to make sure this stuff is visible. All right. So now we need some text. I didn't point out, and I didn't actually set up, in the font I used in the video was a font called Treasure Map Deadhand, which is perfect. It's a pirate treasure thing, and it's free. Free for commercial use, free for any type of use, but and it also is one of the few fonts I found that loads inside of Natron without any issues, or at least it has for me. But we all know how it can be done if it doesn't from previous text episodes where we've loaded a custom font. And which is you use this, and when you load in the file path over here, let me make sure that's visible, not behind my head. If you click on this, you can load in a custom font, and it will add it to your font list for this particular project once it's saved. But for my case, I already have it in here. It's right here. It's called Treasure Map Deadhand. Click on that, and we can see this. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it to center interact, and we're going to set it up to a nice big, what size? It's been a while since I actually looked at what I did for the size. 200. All right, so we're going to set this to 200. So it's about that big, and then we're going to put in the words instead of Natron this time. We're going to start trying to use things other than Natron. We're going to put treasure map with, so that and treasure map deadhand works very well with caps and small lowercase. You should never really, in my opinion, use this font without it. So this is going to be our basis for what we're going to turn into. This is going to be our source basically for turning into the dither pattern. Now we need to create the dither pattern itself. Now, people may not be familiar with what the term dithering means. There's a node called the quantize node. And if we pull up the quantize node, we've used this in the past, but we haven't used it for what it's really intended for, which is turning things from a high bit depth down to a lower bit depth. It doesn't do a great job. It doesn't do color palettes, which is why you shouldn't use it for doing things like making GIFs and stuff. You're better off doing that in other software. Natron's not the program for that. Well, you can do it. I'm not going to say you can't do it, but it's not as ideal because you can't really customize the palettes inside of Natron. Unless somebody comes out with a node, somebody could build one, or maybe we'll try doing that at some point. I don't know if it is possible, but we might be able to. Anyway, that's a topic for a different time. So what does the quantize node do? Well, the first thing before we use the quantize node, what we want to do is blur this treasure map text a little bit. So we're gonna add a blur just so we can soften this up a bit. And we're going to put this up to about 10. And we're going to zoom in on it so we can see it, the edge is nice and soft. And then we're going to put the quantize node in here. And we put in the quantize node, the first thing you'll notice is that this changed ever so slightly. It reduced it from basically, 256 shades or 1,000 shades. It's actually, because we're dealing with it's actually I think it's 4,096 shades down to 16 colors, or 16 shades of gray. So we can see before, after, and you can see it looks like all it did is it trimmed off the edge, but it's just using 16 shades of gray. But what we're really going to be doing is we're going to be bringing this down to 2 colors. We want it to bring down to 2. There we go. And the error quantize node is one of those nodes that if you bring it down to 0, it temporarily breaks. The way we fix the error or the warning is we hit Alt and P to bring up its preview, and then we go away. Now it's made it hard edged, and it looks a lot like it it did before we had this, or before we actually added the blur. It sort of just rounds it all out, which is okay because that's actually part of what I want to do. But we also want to look at these patterns, and if we go to the Bayard pattern, and we can go all through all these different awarded Bayard patterns and whatnot, and these are various different textures and so forth that we can use. We're going to be using, I believe, the void cluster, either 14 or 25. It really, I don't think it's going to matter too much. 25 is probably going to give us a bit more, or we could use random. You know what? Why don't we stick with random for right now? I think random might be a little more, useful, because what we're going to be using this for is on the edges of our text, where this transitions in our dither pattern. We're going to use this to sort of make a little bit of well, you'll see. We're going to be shifting things. All right, but this isn't actually going to be. This is the problem. Is we have only limited types of dither patterns using the quantize node. So what we need to do is we need to create something custom, and the way we're going to do that is the first thing we have to understand is that with dither patterns, we're really restricted to keeping these at a single unit of pixel high in order for them to work the best, or to work effectively. It's hard to make them, at least in, I haven't found a very good way. I'm not saying we can't make them in a different way. It's just that I found it doesn't work usually as well making them thicker than one, but we can space the pattern, and that's actually one of the things we're going to do. All right, so how are we going to do this? We're going to make a checkerboard. And what are we going to do with this checkerboard? We're going to take this checkerboard, and first thing we're going to do is get rid of the center line. All right, because we don't want the center width is this yellow pattern. We don't want that in here. So we're going to set that to 0. And we're going to reduce the box size down to 2. All right, and you're saying 2, that sounds weird. We just said we want these things to be 1. Actually, let me double check and make sure I did do it to, I think I have to do the first one to 1. Box size. Yep. Just verifying. Yes, I do 1 at 1. All right. Yes. So notice I've 1 at 1. What we have to do is we set it to 1 for the first size. So these are each one of these is 1 pixel high. But what we don't want is we don't want this to be checkerboards. We want this to be horizontal stripes. So we're going to change this, break this part so that we can scale the X direction to 2000, like so, which makes it very big. But we can see that we have a hard line right here in the center. And then we're going to have to offset this somehow. And the way we're going to offset this is we're going to change this from default to size, because when we go to size, we can change the actual physical size of the image here. Well, actually, we could have done it. You know what? We could probably. Well, the main reason that we want to use size versus format is because if we use or default or any of the others, is because you'll notice that with size we have this option to center, and that's going to be crucial to resizing this. So we're going to let's just zoom this out to full screen, and we're going to change this so that it's 4000. It doesn't really matter. It's not 400, 4000 by 1080, and that makes it really long. And now, that what that's done is it's basically made it longer than it is, than I think our image is wide. And so what's happened is that center point that was the seam has now moved off, and it's over here off the edge. It's past the edge. We have a more than 2000 line, or a width higher than 1920. So it's literally the seam is now happening here. We don't want to recenter it. We could recenter it, but we don't want to because we want nice horizontal stripes. All right. So then we're going to take this, we're going to push this stuff off to the side for the moment. We're going to take this checkerboard and we're going to duplicate it 2 more times. Oh, wait, before we do that, we need to do one other thing. which is we need to change these colors here so that they are black and white. So we're going to change the dark ones to black, the light ones to white, and do it a second time here, black, and we can change this to white. And we're actually going to be, I think, changing, I believe actually we want to change the top one eventually to white as well, and that'll make more sense in a moment. But for right now, what we're going to do is duplicate this 2 more times. So we're going to go Alt-C, Alt-C, and Alt-C copies it, so we have copies of them, not clones, copies. We want to make sure we get copies of these. And on the second one, what we're going to do is change the pixel size for the vertical pixel size from 1 to 2. So let's go over and look at this one, and we're going to change that to 2, like so. And then for the next one, we're going to make it 4. All right, and there we go. So we have it. So 1, 2, 4. And the reason we're doing that is these are going to be overlapping spaces that are going to block off. We're going to be using them to block off one another. So let me see. I want to have, we're going to put a merge node here, and we're going to take this and let's look at this. I want to zoom in so we can see what's going on, so that this is very clear for everybody. So this is our single pixel high version of this. All right, we're going to plug in the other one on top of it. Now, if everything worked right, which we haven't set it up right, we need to actually make the black on these not black, but oh yes, we also need a source. I want to make sure that I used a solid. So I'm going to go here, solid. We want to add a solid here. Why? Because we want our backgrounds to be ultimately solid here. I just want to make sure something. Right. We want this to be, our source to be solid. This is going to be the same size as our project settings, which is 1080 by 1920 by 1080 HD. We're going to hit period to get a dot node there, connect that up here, and then we're going to control click on the midpoint of this, pull it over, connect that up like that, and then control do that like that. All right, so there we go. So we have the two over one another. Now for checkerboard 2, right here. Oh, by the way, I'm using a new microphone, or, well, it's not new, it's actually an old microphone. But if there are any audio issues, if anybody's hearing anything, I see things. I was having problems with my original, with my old audio device that I was capturing with, and I didn't know, and nobody actually had pointed it out until I started listening to, rewatching the some of the videos. I noticed it started getting crackly sounds in it, so I've replaced that. Sorry I'm interrupting this with that information, but it's important information. People are having issues, let me know, please. I will redo this episode if it goes bad. Anyhow, back to this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to set the black ones to being all 4 values being transparent. All right. And why, you'll notice as soon as I set it to so that it used all values, that made the alpha adopt 0, and suddenly it became transparent. So when we put the 2 on top of it, we can see that it's actually blocking out every other line. And likewise, we're going to do the same thing here on the 4. So when we go here, we click on those 2 like so, and we wind up with that. And when we pipe that into A2 on our merge, boom, we've knocked it out. So now we have stripes at, actually, technically we have stripes at 2 different intervals. We're going to be actually cloning, or copying, I should say, this this verge, this merge node. We're going to copy this, and we're going to use this as a second source. So we're going to go over here. We're going to just take this one, and we're going to use it like so. We're going to connect it up to the first one. This first one, that's 1, and the second one, which is 2, that's going to give it 2 stripes, 4 stripes. So we now have access to one that has every line is a black and white stripe. Then we have this one here is every other line is a black and white stripe, and then every 4th line is a black and white stripe. Or we have 4 lines of white and 1 line of black. All right. So that's why we're doing this. We're making 4 different things, spicing it out. All right. And we're going to be using these 2 things as our in fact, you know what? I actually, because of how this is going to work, I don't think we actually need that. I'm going to change this. We're not actually going to do that as a duplicate. We're going to hit Alt and hit K. We want that to be a clone, because if we make a modification to this, I think we want to have whatever we do here go apply to the other one as well. The only difference is going to be for the tour. We're going to only it still will work the exact same, but if I make a change here, at least I know that, excuse me, on this merge node, if I were, for example, to change this from over to, say, overlay, which is not what we'd want to do, it would affect the other one exactly the same. Anyway, we're going back to over because that's what we want. Anyhow, it's important to know that we want to keep it cloned. That way we don't have to adjust the settings twice, because we want these to remain the same. And if we apply it to one, it is going to apply to the other. The only difference, again, is going to be how many are piped into each one of these. All right, so now we need to create the little waves. How are we going to create waves to make, so you understand what I mean by waves. On all maps, you're probably all wondering, what the heck am I doing here? We're mimicking on old maps. On old maps, if you look when you get to the ocean, a lot of times from islands and stuff, you would see that they would, a lot of times, there's a couple ways they would simulate that there's a transition from land to water, or from a rock or a tree into something else, and they would put these little like hand-drawn cut lines and so forth. Sometimes they would carve it out of wood, or they would. It's basically a dithering pattern, a handmade dithering pattern. But because a lot of times these were drawn by hand, because they didn't, before they were done by presses and so forth, before map making was done with woodcuts, they did these things with, but even when they were made with woodcuts, the problem is they were carved by hand. And when you carve these things by hand, the hand moves. And so it creates little variations and so forth. So what we want to do is try and create these types of patterns sort of naturally occurring and so forth. And so how are we going to do that? Well, we've created these here are going to be those lines. That's what we've created right now. So the next thing we want to do is we want to sort of create those imperfections so they look like the actual, like they were hand carved or hand drawn. And right now they look like they're CG lines. They would look really weird. They wouldn't look very natural or organic. All right, that way now we all should know what we're doing. That's the goal. So how are we doing this? We're going to do an eye distort. So we're going to use an eye distort because obviously we want to waver this, and in fact we're going to eye distort both of them. So we're going to Alt K this eye distort and pipe it into, put the source into the other one so it applies to both of them, because they are also going to be, let's see, I'm going to take a whole background here, and I'm just going to select it all, and we're going to actually start organizing this a little bit. I'm going to actually add a backdrop at the moment. Hit Tab, add a backdrop. We're going to put it around this. And we're just going to label this backdrop, and from backdrop to, we're just going to call it background. All right, and we'll give it a nice color. Yeah, that'll work, just so that it's identified. All right, so that's our background. All right, well, we can actually call, background's not very useful. It doesn't tell us what it actually is. It should be called parchment. All right, so there we go. Now it's cool. Now we know what it is. It's identified. We can we know where it goes and so forth. It's going to go to that frame hold if we follow the graph. That way we can move it out of the way for working on this a little bit more because we need more room. Or at least I'm of the opinion we need more room. All right, so we need an SE noise. And let me just pull up my SE noise over my original here. And that's odd. Oh, yes, because we have the SE noises over there. That's right. I built this in a different order than I did originally. All right, so the SE noise for this, what we're going to do is, let's look at our noise. This is going to be, let's zoom out a little. This is going to be what's going to make this move up and down. So it needs to be a relatively small pattern to make these lines shimmy up and down a little bit. So we're going to change this down to the noise size down to 20. We're also going to reduce the octaves because I don't want this. Well, all right, let me just think about this. Let me also look at this over in here and just make sure. Yeah. We're going to right. We want to. Well, we're going to be bringing it down, but it might not be obvious until we actually do it. So we're going to connect these up to the UV inputs of these two eye distorts, and just so that this is clear, I'm going to put a couple dot nodes here off like that so that we can see the flow coming from this SE noise. In fact, I think I want to pull this SE noise over just a smidge more so it's like that. There we go. All right, so let's look at our eye distort. Now we can already see that this is not doing what we hopefully, or what we think it should be doing, or I'm hoping people think it should be doing. But we're not going to worry about it too much yet. We're going to, first of all, I'm going to keep I'm going to go to the eye distort and we're going to set it up. So our eye distort, we're going to set it to 0.5. Make sure, 0.5, tab 0.5, because we want it to work from the halfway mark. We don't want this shifting it up and down. And we're going to set the UV scale to 5. Not very much. And there we go. We can see right there that we're starting to get these little bitty just pushes up and down on it. But obviously we have the problem. We're seeing the texture inside of the white spots of this. And there are ways, complex ways we could fix that, but we're going to try and stick to keeping this simple for right now. And the way, so we're going to deal with this. Let me just make sure. Oh, yes. Right now, what we're going to focus on is we're going to keep the pattern the way it is. I just want to, let me make sure, yes, I've kept it there. I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing something funky in my original one. So we're going to merge this. What we're going to do right now is we need to truncate this so that we can isolate it. We don't want all this overhang over here. It's unnecessary stuff off to the side. So on both of these, we are going to put a merge node in, and we are going to actually use this solid again over here. So we're going to just take this. This solid is going to become our background, and we're going to put a period over here and connect it into that solid like so. All right, bring it down, and then we're going to put a merge node off of this, and we're going to look at that, and we're going to merge into it the eye distort, and then we're going to tell the eye distort that we want to, we're going to tell the merge that we want it to use the B input for our ROD, or bounding box, and then we're going to again clone this. So we're going to Alt K, which is going to throw it off in the middle of nowhere, and we'll put the same thing. We're going to connect it up to the same point. We'll bring it over like that and connect that up like that. So both of them are in parallel. We're going to bring the B over like that, and we'll connect that like so. Should be good. And bring this over. For some reason it's not moving for me. There we go. All right, we move that over and down so it's organized. We have it organized. They're coming in. We can see, we can follow the flow, and it's important that we follow the flow. And I have a distracting thing to the side. Sorry, wasn't looking at you guys. I was looking over here at a smaller monitor. All right, so now that we have this done, we need to let me go back and look at what we're gonna do. Well, this is going to be a bit weird because we're not going to I'm just thinking about how to describe. We're not actually going to trim this down to the individual lines until after we've merged it with our masks of what's going to happen over here, our text masks that are going to form the multiple layers for these different types of dither patterns that we're going to have. And I'm just I don't think I actually, in the final version of this, I'm letting people know we're not actually going to use the one. If you want to get the level 1, the 1 pixel spacing ones and do the same thing, we would actually have to do one more of these branches of nodes, clones, basically, for it. We're only actually going to be interested in the 4 and the 2 for our final pattern, because I want this, because of the fact that it's shifting up and down. I don't want to have, if it's only 1 pixel, the problem is if it shifts up, it's going to touch the line above it, right? So it doesn't make sense to have 1 pixel. So we're not going to use that in any situation. It just so happens that we need it in order to form the ultimate pattern, or at least that's my experience. And yeah, so that's what we're doing it. Sounds good. All right. Mentally, that's what's going to happen. All right. So we don't need this quantized node. That was just to demonstrate what was going on at the moment. We're going to be using that later. What we need to do is, I didn't want to do that point yet. We'll do that later. All right. We're going to, from our text node, let's focus on this. We're going to put a dot node out of it, because we're going to do 2 erode smooths. We're going to be doing an erode smooth here. It's going to go down, and you need 1 erode smooth per branch, basically, because we're going to be handling these in 2 different sizes. If we think about it, what we need to do is make this either bigger or smaller, based off of whatever pattern we're going to use, either the spacing of 4 or the spacing of 2. And so those are we need 2 branches to erode from or dilate from. So we can just copy this. And in this case, we do not want these, because these are going to be 2 different things. We do not want them to be clones in this situation, because these are going to be unique. So for the first one, let me just make sure. I want, excuse me, for this one here, let's make sure we get the right one. And let's look at that one. Get our viewer over here. We're looking at this erode smooth here, the one that's coming off to the right. This one is we're going to make, let's see, let me make sure I'm bringing it into the correct branch. This is going to ultimately go into this branch here, which is, I believe, the 4 spacing. Yes. We can see 2 spacing, 4 spacing. So this branch here is going to be going into the 4 spacing. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make our text bigger. We're going to, now, this is going to change based off of whatever your font is, because in this case, our font is really thin. So we could in theory make the font bigger by adjusting its weight, but that means we'd have to make a clone of the text node and then disable the attributes and modify it, or something along those lines. It's just easier because we have to use or in my opinion, it's easier to do it with an erode smooth because we have other types of control to it. I prefer to use the erode smooth in this situation, but you can do that. You can use a second branch of the text node to do it. So in this case, because I want to make it bigger, we're going to take this into a negative direction. So we're going to take the size here and we're going to take it back to -5, I believe. And oh yes, and this is a big thing to note, is that it didn't do anything. We need to say, why isn't it doing anything? That's because we don't have alpha enabled. As soon as we enable alpha, we can see it's pushed it out. And so that is where we're going to leave it for right now. And I think we don't have to do anything more with that particular version, or that erode smooth. So we'll go over to the other erode smooth, and for that one, we are going to bring this one up, or we're going to actually erode in on this one a little bit. And what we want to do is we want to bring this up. We're going to bring it up to eroding in 1. And we also need to enable the alpha so we can see it. So let's see what that did. Why is that not showing up? Oh, right, because 1 doesn't actually do anything. 1 is basically the equivalent of 0. 1 is the starting point. But we're not going to be, if we take it up to 2, it's going to erode in too far. It starts eating away too much into it, and we start losing details that we're going to want to preserve. So what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to bring this up just a 0.1, which just erodes it in just a smidge, so we retain a lot of the detail and most of the letter, so we can actually read it and it will be legible. All right. So at this point, what we're going to do here is on this node over here, erode smooth. You know what? I'm going to change this from erode smooth 1_2 to erode smooth 2, just so that it's a single line. It makes it a little cleaner. Our nodes aren't quite as big, but it doesn't matter. The reason is we want to merge this. I'm going to push our text branch over a little bit because ultimately we're going to be putting more things into this, because we're not only going to be, because everything that we want to adopt, this particular dither branch has to go through the next set of nodes together. So we're going to merge things into at this point into it. But for now, because we don't have anything else going into it, for example, the path, when we do the actual, the path that we saw, it's going to come into the next point. But we don't need it yet, but we are going to put it in there anyway. We're going to put this here. This is where the other things are going to come in. And after it, okay, after this point, we're going to add a blur here. So blur this. And we're going to blur this branch. Let's zoom out a little bit so we can see the treasure map a little bit better. And we're going to blur that, how much? 10. All right, so we want to, I did it 10. 10 brings it up that much. I don't have this mic isn't quite as, don't know if that showed up in the audio. There was a noise from the other room. I'll apologize if that sounded odd. It was weird in here. All right, so how are we using this? We've taken it and blurred it. Why did we blur it? We're going to be using this mask. Well, this is going to be a mask, basically. We're going to, or at least I believe, let me make sure of something here. What we're going to be doing, just want to make sure of something here. Just want to make sure I'm thinking this through correctly. Right. All right. So what we're going to do over here on the right hand side, so we're going to add a solid. Okay, and this solid here is going to be, let's zoom this out, we're going to make this white. This white, we're going to merge, oops, that shouldn't have happened. That connected up incorrectly for some reason. But we're going to take that solid, connect it into the B input of this merge node. And then we're going to take this, the A input, and connect it up here to the other. And so we wind up with basically this white, and it's white with black, basically, lines going over it, right? It's basically, so that has filled in all the background with this and left bits of basically these bits of gray values in here, and it's really broken it up. It's made it look lighter here where it starts deviating. It's basically breaking up a pattern here. And we're going to then, I believe, I just want to make sure, yes, we use the mask because this is what we need to pull this out of the way so that we can gain access to the mask input. And we're going to feed the mask input into our blur. And when we do that, we wind up with this. And as you can see, it's just our text here, but our text has masked out the bits, everything outside of this zone. So all we're winding up with is this is masking out this in a shape so that all that feeds through it is the little black lines, and this forms the white outside of that. So we wind up with just the little wavy bits, all right? There's other ways of doing this, but this is the way we're going to be doing it. And we're going to be doing the same thing on the other branch as well. But for now, we're focusing on this branch. So we're going to continue this branch. I want to make sure I get the clamps right, because I just gave away the next bit. So why are we clamping it? Well, obviously we've done this before. We want to create a pattern here. And the obvious easiest way to make a pattern is to clamp it. So we're going to enter a clamp node, and we're going to say clamp minimum maximum, and we're going to, wait a minute, that's not right. Oh, the phone, something is looking weird here. Let me make sure I've got it. Well, that is right. Yeah, yeah. Hold on. Something is definitely going weird. Pardon me for a moment. I gotta just explore why I'm getting a very weird, different result over here in my other one. Oh, I know why. Yes. Wait a minute. No. No. It's not looking right. I'm looking at this. All right. Let me just... Troubleshooting time. All right. Wait a minute here. Checkerboard. Am I doing this wrong? Checkerboard. Goes in there. Goes to the eye distort. Comes down to merge. I want to make sure these are all set correctly. Wait. Alright, yeah, that's bounding box B. A. Yep, 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 yep. Alright. Then we're going here. We're going here. A, B. should have known. I should have known Natron would do this to me. All right, Natron, what is going on here? Something is not giving me... You know what? I'm wondering if it's because I've got... No, it's definitely not that. All right, why am I getting a different result here? -5, 1. Pre-mult. The only thing that makes these complex things worse is when Natron decides that it's going to give me a totally different result in one version of the program than it's giving me in another one. And that seems to be the case right here. And I'm not 100% sure why I'm getting this. I'm just double checking some things at this point. Is it because... I'm wondering if it's because of this. That's what it is. All right. Hopping back. So you noticed that we had a problem. Oh, I said we had a problem, and you're probably saying, oh, what's the problem? Problem number one was, well, this was a problem. It's not the only problem. There is another problem I'm seeing, but we'll deal with that problem in a minute. I'll figure that out. What we're seeing, what was happening is that the alpha channel was allowing a color to come through that we didn't want, and it wasn't merging correctly, and so we were winding up with splotches because we were winding up with transparency in our alpha channels that we didn't want. And I suddenly realized that our alpha channel was looking different. And that was because this was set to, these were set to 1 or were set to 0 before, or not these, excuse me, these were set to 1. If we set this to 1, it made the black solid, which was not good. We need to keep it 0. So all 3 of the checkerboards need to have, the blacks have to be made transparent. All right, so just set them to 0 on the... We hadn't done that on the first one, and that's what led to my problem. Or skipped a step. Oh, poor Bill, you did it again. But it was at least partially. There still is another problem, but that solves one of the bigger problems. There's still another problem here. Let me show you what we should be getting. This should be, we can see the pattern here. This is what we should be getting right now. And I'm not getting it currently in our current pattern that we're looking at. And so the question is why? So now I've got to figure out what's going on that is different over here, because otherwise we won't know. All right, so we have a clamp going on. Now I thought I had clamped this, but and done restrictions on at this point, but apparently I did not. So I thought I had done that, but I didn't according to this. So the question becomes, why am I not getting the same exact pattern here? So I've got to go back through and look at these. That is correct. Oh, I hate this when this happens. Boy. I don't blame myself for not... Honestly, I was so busy. I've had a... Yes, I've mentioned in... for people who watch this on Facebook, they noticed I had stated that that this may be... Things might be changing in the future. My pillaging and plundering days for my current crew might be changing for the short term due to circumstances beyond... Oh, interesting. Could that be it? No. Oh, that could be. All right. No. It is doing the same thing over there. Hold on, I got 2 nodes in a different order over in the other side on my other project. They're just in a different place. Let me just double check. All right. there is another difference. All right, let's see if that changes things. On this checkerboard in my original one, I have this color 0 set to 1. All right. Did that change anything? It did change it a little bit, but it still hasn't fixed the problem. I'm double checking, making sure all my values and so forth are right. Everything looks the same here. We have that. We have that. All right. I'm going to check my other ones. Interesting. All right. I think I see another problem here, which is that according to this, if I'm reading this correctly. All right, we made a mistake earlier on. More mistakes in my earlier stuff. I did not double check before I got here on today. We want to bring these all up to 1. Color 0 needs to be 1 on all of these. And it's still not solving the problem. Phew, I was hoping that was the problem. Wait a minute. That's weird. Interesting. Okay, according to this on the first layer, this is supposed to be 1. Now I'm really confused. Oh boy. This is totally different than what I got over here. Let me just double check something here. Let me just check these. B goes into here. A goes into there. A2 goes into there. At this point, I am not happy with Natron. We're going to give Natron the old cannon. Natron, you're failing me. All right, I'm going to have to investigate this because this puts us at a standstill until I figure out what this is. So this... I may have to end this live stream and start this over again. I'm not happy. I don't know why this is happening. There's clearly an error going on here that is not supposed to be going on. And I'm getting a very, very different result. And I don't know if it's a problem I made or if it's a problem... I'm being more cautious than I have been in the past. But I'm 99% sure at this point that this problem is a Natron issue and that I made a boo-boo somewhere, or I didn't. I want to try. I like troubleshooting, but I hate troubleshooting live because I know it benefits some people, but it also frustrates others because it's like they want things to just work. And I understand and agree with this. All right, that's 5. That's 5. That's alpha. I feel like if I can troubleshoot this and find the problem here for everybody right now, it will be a lot more beneficial than if I stop this stream, because this is useful for everybody who's watching this live. Now, this is odd. Wait a minute. Oh, never mind. All right, no, it's right. I had the wrong one selected. All right. I am definitely getting a totally different result here, which makes me wonder what in the world is going on here. Let me look at this. Right? I'm checking the alpha. Alpha is solid. Alpha, solid. Let me go down here. Alpha is solid. Wait a minute. I think I figured out why. Let me go. We may not have had a problem after all. Let me just double check. All right, we get that is odd. Wait a minute. No? Did I? Think. I'm just checking my alphas here. Okay. This is very strange. Why is that? Okay. I figured out what the problem is. Here's where the problem is. The problem is this SE noise. In my original one, the SE noise does not have an alpha channel at all, which means that the alpha channel is 1. Which means this, but in this one, we have an alpha channel in it. And I'm trying to figure out how I got rid of the alpha channel in the other one. And we haven't actually finished this as well, which is another problem. But let's see if I just take that off. You know what we may have to do for the time being. I don't understand why. Wait a minute. I figured it out. I know exactly why it doesn't have an alpha channel. I skipped one thing. I just realized okay, here's where the problem lies. The problem lies that I'm so used to, in the past, we've always just put SE noises in by default. And the problem is that we don't want to put an SE noise in here. So the problem was, what we want to do is put a dot node over here and take our source for this and put it into there. And as soon as we do that, now the SE noise is being driven by the solid, which means it doesn't inherit a alpha channel by default because a solid doesn't have an alpha channel. And we notice that our alpha channel on our SE noise disappears here. As soon as we do that, I bet you when we get over here, we have a solid alpha channel over here. Let me get down to the exact same point in this, and let's go out of our alpha, and lo and behold, now it looks like what it was supposed to look like. So just so people can see why it was broken, this is before what it was looking like. Let's get that at a 1-to-1 ratio so we can see this. So this is what we started with, which looks really weird and wonky because there's an alpha channel getting merged in that shouldn't have been. And when we connect that alpha channel, when we eliminate the alpha channel from the SE noise, because we want this SE noise not to distort, we don't want it to affect the outputs of these. I thought it was looking a little weird earlier on. Back here, there we go. See what happens? Watch this. We remove it. I was looking at it going, wait a minute. Now, I'm just making sure of something. I want to see something here. Back at my eye distorts. I thought so. back here, I was like, I thought my eye distorts didn't have this as well. I was like looking at the grain. Right, to get rid of the grain here, I had to put it in, and there's where my flaw happened, is that the alpha channel was getting carried through on the from the SE noise forward, and I wasn't looking at the alpha channel itself. My apologies to everybody. I'll pre-build these things a lot of times ahead of time, and you miss things. That said, it's been exactly an hour. We're going to push this up forward. We're not going to get to the to doing the actual stroke today, but we will finish this up. It's always good to troubleshoot these. I'll really feel it was my fault. I'll accept responsibility, which is all right. Whew. But it's good to track these things down. I will, when, by the way, in the final version of this, we will have a skip point on that to skip over that. All right, so we're up to this point. This is going to also solve it for the other one as well. So here we go. We can see our line pattern, and that is what we want for our line pattern. This is what we're going to be using for our road. But we're not at the point where this is actually finished. This is the point where we start doing, we need to start looking at doing the quantized node. So we take our quantized node that we made over here, and I'm just going to double check my original one. We're going to take a clamp node, and we're going to pipe it in like so. We're going to quantize it, and the first thing we notice is that it's gone color. And the reason that it has gone color, actually, I thought there was a color, pretty sure that, all right. First of all, we got to take our clamp, we go in here, we go to quantize. Let me look at my quantize node here. And according to this, it should be 2 colors. RGB. Right. All right. If we do random, the problem is that it randomizes all the color channels, and we wind up with color. So we can't use random. We have to use. I think that's the problem. Let me make sure. Yes, we want to go to void cluster, because void clusters, well, it still looks random-ish. Void clusters have, as we can see here, we're going to actually use the void cluster 14 here. Or that's what I used. I'm just double checking. Yeah, I like the pattern a little bit better. It's up to you. This is totally up to you which one of these you use. Actually, no, I think we're gonna keep it 25 by 25 for right now, because I like it added some extra little dots out here, which are going to just add to the overall flavor of this being hand drawn or pressed with a woodcut. All right. So it just gives it more, it breaks up the pattern more. So by putting this quantized node in here, so let's look at what happened here. We're taking this pattern and we've wavered it. Now we're going to convert it into 2 colors, and we're using the quantized node, and we're applying this pattern, this randomized pattern. We can pick any pattern in here, but if we do an order Bayer, it just looks really obvious and static and continuous. Whereas we go with the void clusters, we wind up getting something that's a lot more random at the edges, and it really makes it look like these are imperfections in the actual design of this woodcut, which is a lot more desirable. Now, admittedly, we have a problem here, which is these are all very, very harsh. They're transitioning from black to white, and in reality, if we were to really do this, we don't want it to transition from black to white so harshly. So we're going to be doing, well, we're gonna do this another way in a minute. But I want to, before we, well, no, we'll do it right now. We'll do in a road. We're just going to use a regular road according to this. All right, road. Forget why I used a regular road. I thought I used a road smooth, but I didn't. I did a road here. And did I do anything? Oh, yes! Right. All right, so why are we using this road? One of the things that we'll see here is that with this cut, when we do this, a lot of the pixels, when we get up into this, there's holes in here. We can see holes because the void cluster doesn't leave these as solid lines. And we want these to look more like solid lines as they go out from the edge. And so what we're going to do is something interesting here. We're going to extend everything. We're going to basically extend it by one pixel. I think it was, yeah, 1 pixel. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to expand it in one direction. So we're going to set the Y to 0 because we don't want to do this vertically. We only want to do this horizontally. And then we're going to take this up to, I think, 2. Wait a minute. Why is that not working? Oh, because we're not looking at. There we go. All right, 1. There we go. So what we've done is we went from this to this. And what it does is, as we can see, it makes these lines look a lot more like they're going out and they're winding up with just little dots and so forth, little imperfections and so forth. And it just makes makes the lines look more inconsistent, thicker in some places, thinner in other places. It adds to the overall effect, in my opinion. You don't have to do this, but I think it'll read better. I think it reads better in the final result. I just want to also make sure that I did this. Yes. Why? Now that's interesting. Hold on 1 second. Yes. All right. Yes. We're at the right point. Okay. So then we're going to take this and we're going to do a merge at this point. And we're going to merge it with the... That's so weird. All right. We're going to have to... I want to make sure of something. I think I want to just make sure we're merging. Sometimes Natron gets confused. I want to point this out as a potential tip. Sometimes if you accidentally hit like the 2 key or something like that, you can see it can connect up for doing viewing 2 things simultaneously using a wipe. And we've done that in the past. Sometimes if you accidentally hit the same key twice, for example, if I hit 2 twice over here, you'll see that this, I don't know if you saw it. Watch this. I'm going to hit 1 twice. Watch what happens when I hit 2. I'm going to hit 2. See how this is thin? This looks thinner or grayer than it was. Ready? Watch what happens when I hit it a second time. Did you see how this darkened up? That means that this has become the primary input whenever I connect things, it's going to default to 2. What I want to do is set it back to 1, but when I go to 1 always stays dark for some reason, but you still have to hit 1 2 times. So basically, I'll recommend, if you ever have a situation where it starts doing the 1 2 thing, a lot of times that can get fixed by hitting 1 twice. And now, hopefully, when we start adding new nodes, it will do the same thing. So, or connect to 1. Let's double check, because we're going to do the same. We're basically going to bring this branch down. Whoops, excuse me, not that branch. This branch right here. We're going to bring this down. So we're going to take over here. We're going to... All right. We brought this branch in over here for our current one. This is our 4 line. We need to do... Or wait a minute. No, this is... Is this our 4 line or a 2 line? This is our 4 line. Now we're going to do our 2 line. And we're going to put a little bit of space in this, between this clamp, because we're going to be bringing this down. So going over to this solid here. This is the solid that was feeding in to this whole section down here. That's this white. It's just solid white. Fit. All right. We're going to hit a dot here. And we're going to branch this down. So we're going to have a dot. We're going to actually put a dot node here and link it in like this. And that's going to go over to a branch that's going to connect up to this road over here. All right. So this one, what are we going to do over here on this road? This is our texture map. As we know, this is the 4. This is the 4 that came over this way. This is going to be the 2. All right. So we bring that in. Let's see, how did I do this one? I brought it down. We're going to add a blur here. Blur. And we are going to blur that 10, just like the other one. We could have probably cloned it, but we didn't. Because and just so you know, we don't ever want to clone these anything on these branches, because we may want to adjust this blur to a different level than the other blur. So depending on how we want those those things to transition from the solid lines to the dotted bits, that's what this part determines. Is that this blur is what's determining that. All right, so then what we want to do is, let me see, I think I did. All right, so back over here with the output, we're going to grab this dot, and we're going to do a merge from there. And we're going to take this merge, and we're going to connect it up to our 2 output, the A to the 2, so it's coming over it like so. We can see that it's doing it basically every line. All right, let's get that to snap into place nicely. There we go. It's looking good there. And from this one, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract this. And at least I think that's what I want to do. Do I want to do that? Let me just double check. Is that what I did here? Yes, I want to subtract this, and the reason we're going to be subtracting it is because we want to have a solid area in the middle here. All right, so let's connect up our mask first of all. We're going to bring our mask. We're going to grab the mask out of this and bring it over to that blur so that it comes through. There we go. There's our treasure map. And what we want to do is, where it is coming through, we want this, instead of being this sort of broken up pattern here, we want it to actually be black. So we are going to, let's bring this down a little bit. We're going to take this and we're going to change this from over to minus. All right. And we're going to, what that's going to do is it's going to subtract the A, which is the stripes, from the solid. All right. Based off of the alpha channel. So when we go minus, it's going to basically make it black in the center. And so we wind up with this pattern. We still wind up with the stripes in it, but it's black in the center. And that creates the inner text. And we can by lowering this blur, we can adjust, you know, how thick this is. Those are when they transition. But we want it to be decently thick. We may adjust this later. This is a personal preference thing. All right, so that gets us a thing. So we can see, let's look at the difference. Here we have these for our 4 lines, and for our 2 lines, we want it to be like this, because it's going to be the text itself, and then the pattern coming off at an interval of 2, because they're closer to the land, or closer to the mast. All right. So then we need to basically do the same thing. In fact, at this point, I do believe we actually can. I think we can. Do we use the exact same thing? Well, you know what? I think we can. I'm going to clamp it, just to be on this. You know what? We're going to clamp it. It's always safe to clamp. Clamp, just to be on the safe side. Clamp it. We're going to quantize. You know what? I'm just going to try. We're going to improvise because we're running low on time. We're going to hit, select all of those, hit Alt. Oh, no, I didn't mean to do that. I want to select all those, hit Alt K to get a clone. Bring those down. This doesn't work. Well, it's my own mistake. We're going to connect those up so that they branch the same way. Hopefully, these will. Let's take a look at the end. Let's select the last one. Take our viewer, look through it, and there we go. That's what it looks like there. Let me make sure that's what I get in the other one, so that we have what just happened. I just broke something. Sorry. Yes. All right. So this is what our text looks like coming off of there. And as you can see, it's a lot more, it's a lot denser. And in fact, I might even say that that kind of bothered me a little bit. You can see that it's a toss-up here. We have a choice to make. We can either come out of the erode and wind up with these long bits. But my problem here with the long bits is the fact that we wind up with these come out and it sort of makes it look really blocky inside this area. Whereas if we come out of the quantize, the big problem we face is now we get a lot of dots in the middle of the text, and we could potentially fix that by dropping the blur size down a little bit. In fact, I think I prefer this method because I wanted to sort of feel. I didn't do this in the original one, but I also was rushing to get that done for today. So we're going to pull it back basically a little bit. Not sure if I like that better. Well, that's up to you. We're going to do it for this one. We're going to just do it. Why? Because we can. All right, so we're going to go connect that up to the A input of this merge node. Again, taking this, let's see. All right, this erode, we're going to ignore this erode right here for the moment. The one I'm dragging around. Let me make sure that's visible. This erode. We're going to take the merge node and we're going to take the A input and we're going to connect it up to directly to the quantize. And then for here, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply for the output for this merge 7. We're going to change it because you can see it's currently overriding the other one. We want to take that and we want to say multiply, which will take that and put the two together. So we wind up with this. And the question becomes now, is this better than the other one? I have the other one up over here so I can look at it and, oops, I should be able to look at it and assess. What I'm thinking is trying to, where was it? We went with the void cluster. 14. Just double checking something. 14. Let's try something. I'm just curious. No, doesn't really matter. They both create a different pattern, but you can pick whichever one. This just for some reason looks a little bit thicker to me, which means probably that I didn't. Oh, you know what? I'll bet we didn't. I think we did the erode smooth at a different level. On this one. Where was it? Was that it? Oh boy, I lost track of myself. There we go. That's it. 1.1, 1.15. Blur. Right, blur was 10 here. This blur is. Let's bring this back up to 10. 9, 10. No, I'm getting a totally different result here. All right, you know what? I think we want to go back here because it just makes the text a little bit more readable by keeping it out of the erode too. All right, we're going to use the erode. All right, so this is what we wind up with. All right, we still wind up with little polka dots in here because what those polka dots are where the two different patterns overlap. Or at least they should be, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, well, actually, it looks like it's actually from where this pattern comes from. All right, well, whatever. Whoops, I just disconnected that by accident. Sorry, I disconnected this quantized node from the clamp. This is going to be a long episode, a very long episode. We're almost done. So this has gotten to a point where I think we're almost ready to call this a day for this part. Well, we'll go through adding the other bits into this. The one thing we haven't done over here on this is on the 2. This is the 2 input, the one that goes into our 2 to make our stripe level 2. What we didn't do is the same thing we did up here, and add in a merge here. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to just put a merge in here, and that is going to be where the this is where the inputs are going to come for other things that, you know, are path and so forth. I was afraid that the path might be too much to add this time, and it was. And well, it might not have been if we hadn't had the errors. All right, so let's continue this just a little bit and finish this out. We're gonna what I did, I don't like how this looks currently. I think it's too harsh. We want to soften this up a bit. So what we first need to do, we're doing a multiply here, and that means that there's a potential, depending on what I mean, we clamped it, so it shouldn't do anything. But there's always the potential when you do something that any time I do a multiply, divide, any type of math in a merge node, my assumption has to be that it's no longer going to be 0 to 1, and it's a good assumption to do because we never know. You know, you never know, so it's always better to do it. So clamp, I'm going to clamp it, and then we're going to do a blur. Whoops, oh yes, if you hit B, you get a blur. And then for the blur, all we have to do is take this up. I took it up to 1.8. We'll take the size up to 1, which does nothing for the initial size. And then 0.8, when we get this up to 0.8, it got it soft enough that I felt that this actually starts to me to look like this is actually, you know, soft or anti-aliased on the edge. We could do this a different way. You could use an anti-aliasing instead. You know what? I actually think maybe we'll try that for this one. Let's try that. Let's do what was it? It's MSAA. Some of the community plugins. Community, GLSL, effect. I think it was, I'd like the FXIA. Let's just try that for a minute. We're experimenting. Let's see if that looks better. Uh-oh, it didn't like it. Oh, it didn't like it because it was too, oh, that's a problem with this. Right, we're running into an issue. The reason this might botch out here, yeah, that doesn't look good anyway. Wait a minute, that's the wrong FXA GL. Oh, hold on. Let me go to the community plugins. There's another one, I think. Let me go up here. What time is it? It's 23. All right, we got not very much time. Community. I'm trying to get it so that the community plugins are visible on the video. All right, we want to go to community plugins, GLSL, because it's going to be an effect. Maybe it was. That was. Wait a minute. Right, it was. Maybe it's EWIA. See, there's 2 FXIAs and then there's one EWAA. I forget which one gives me the nice one. There's one that really works really... that's the one right there. EWIA, or EWA, excuse me. EWA, anti-aliasing. Really nice. Look at that. That's even better. That's way better than a blur for giving us a nice anti-aliasing on that. That gets it nice and sweet. We get nice texture in there and it looks a lot cleaner. And if we go to 1, I think if we hit control 1 and look at that's an actual size, before, after, I really like that. That's going to read a lot better than this did when we actually start superimposing it. So we'll keep it in there. But the problem we risk with this is, of course, this is GLSL. And one of the big problems we run into with GLSL is, I might have mentioned this in the past. I'll mention it on this one for anybody who hasn't seen the past episodes. GLSL nodes, if you don't have your view set to fit and have the bottom left corner in, which is the 0 point for the ROD. When GLSL node starts, a lot of GLSL nodes can break and they'll start throwing up errors and so forth. And it can even do it when sometimes this happens. There's all kinds of ways that GLSL can break. They don't break and render necessarily from the same thing. If it's there's other reasons a GLSL will break. This particular thing just happens to be a viewer bug, so to speak. And it's not a big one, but it's annoying when you're zooming in and zooming out a lot. If you disconnect the node, it can cause a problem. But a lot of times once the GLSL engine gets initialized and functions, it usually doesn't, with the simple ones like these, it doesn't cause a problem. Anyhow, this has been running really long. We're going to call it right here. We've got a great looking, there we go. There's a shaded toward failure. That is because what happens, all right. You know how uh-oh. And there's the problem. That's the problem with GLSL. And while we're going to put this over here, all right. So what I've got to do is I've got to pause the render. When I reload this, this is why you shouldn't zoom in and out with this, is because that's actually causing a problem. That's a known glitch. I've talked about this before. That error right there. Hit no. We don't want to stop the render. We're going to connect this up to our original blur for the time being. We're going to keep these GLSLs off until we go to render this, and then we'll put those back in. And in fact, let's get rid of the FXIA. Oh boy, we're really getting so tight on time. This is a really long episode. That's a GLSL issue. Don't worry about it. We pause it. Save if you do this on your own, save it at this point with it paused. It will fix itself at the save point. We're going to go here and we're going to go save this. I'm just releasing. I can't save this quite yet because I actually made an update to this for the other one. I've worked from it for my test render. And I don't want to overwrite that. So I will save this on your own. We're going to start from there. And the next one, so today's goal was this. Minus obviously the path, because I said we might get to that. Today's goal was to actually get this texturing done. And we did that. And we will do the path on the next episode. All right. So thanks for watching and keep all Natron in.